Hey everybody, it's Tom Woods. I've gotten a lot of requests to take on a particular argument that's been circulating around the internet against Ron Paul in recent weeks, namely that he doesn't understand the Constitution when he claims that the federal government can make nothing but gold and silver legal tender. Now, I realize this argument was made a few weeks ago. I'm a little bit behind in my bad guy bashing. I've got a big project I've been working on that I'll be announcing to you guys in the relatively near future. But I got a lot of requests to take this on, so I'm doing it here. One rule of thumb to bear in mind, though, is that whenever somebody claims Ron Paul doesn't understand the Constitution, it turns out that guy doesn't understand the Constitution, and Ron Paul comes out smelling like roses. That rule has not failed me yet. And rest assured that that rule is very much in play in this case. What I'm going to do here is give the basic contours of the argument, and then at the end, I'm going to include a resource page that you can visit where you can read a lot more on this subject if you're so inclined, find additional corroborating evidence, and so on. But I want to keep this video manageable, so just give you the basics of the argument. What they're saying, it seems to me, against Ron Paul, is that it's only in Article 1, Section 10 that deals with restrictions on the states that we read that only gold and silver can be made legal tender by the states. But the argument is, well, then the federal government can apparently make anything it wants to legal tender. Well, that fails on a couple grounds. One is that there's an obvious contradiction. If the federal government declares copper coins to be legal tender, and the states, as is their prerogative, declares gold and or silver coins to be legal tender, well, then there's a dilemma, a constitutional conflict, a legal conflict, confusion. So obviously the federal government would be limited in what it declares to be legal tender to what the states are allowed to declare to be legal tender. But secondly, where does the federal government have a delegation of authority that authorizes it to make any legal tender at all? And that's a good question. There really is no answer to that. It's not been taken up in a satisfactory way. But at least as important as that is looking at what's meant by the word dollar. The word dollar actually appears in the Constitution twice. So it's referring to a pre-existing thing. Everybody knew what the dollar was when they read the Constitution. The word dollar was not a placeholder for whatever we decide to impose on you as the money. You know what the dollar was at that time? When the Constitution was written, the dollar was a silver coin. It was a Spanish coin called the Spanish milled dollar that was in wide circulation among the people. Such wide circulation that a great many authorities declared that, in effect, the Spanish milled dollar and the amount of silver that's in it is, in effect, is and or ought to be the monetary standard of our people. So this is not something that the federal government created and declared to exist. It was merely codifying an already existing custom whereby Americans used the Spanish milled dollar, or that is to say, a dollar of this particular weight and fineness of silver. So on the eve of the Constitution, in 1785, Congress considered a plan to make the Spanish milled dollar officially the money unit. And then in 1786, they went on to declare that this will be the number of grams of silver in it because this will make it equivalent in value to the Spanish dollars. So that's what the dollar is. It's a fixed amount of silver. It's a coin. And then we look at people like Robert Morris, who was very important in the banking community, of course, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, and they're all referring to this particular weight of silver as constituting the dollar. The Coinage Act of 1792 codified this and said, okay, well, we all know what the dollar is. Well, here we go. We're just going to state it for the record. Here's what it is. And now we can determine the ratio in which this coin will exchange for coins made out of other metals. That's what regulating the currency means, by the way. It doesn't mean the federal government can make the money worth whatever it wants to make it worth. It means you establish your standard, and then you declare, based on the relative values of the metals, what ratio the various coins will exchange in. So if gold is 16 times as valuable as silver on the market, then the federal government would be engaged in regulating the currency by simply announcing that it will take 16 silver coins to be the equivalent of one gold coin. Strictly speaking, it doesn't need to do that. The market can handle that job perfectly well. But that's what its role is. It's a kind of a measurement role. That's all it is. It's not you can make the money whatever you want, you can debase it, whatever. That's not. It's just simply declaring what the money is and then what other coins would be worth in relation to it, just based on their relative values on the market and their relative weights and so on. Now, the constitutional powers over money that are given to the federal government in the Constitution are relatively few. And over we see references to coins and coining money. So there is a presumption of a metallic money here, quite apart from the fact that the dollar itself was a metallic money. And that's what everyone understood. It was a pre-existing thing, and we're going to continue using it. Bills of credit, which were in effect paper money, they were intended to function as a medium of exchange, and there's more on bills of credit at the link I'm going to give you at the end. They had been allowed to be issued by the government under the Articles of Confederation, but that power was expressly withheld from the federal government, under the Constitution. So what we've got is basically a hard money system of coins. So in effect, from the beginning, the United States was actually on a silver standard. But gold coins were used too, because the federal government from time to time would regulate the currency, as I said, by declaring what the relative worth of gold versus silver coins were, based on the fact that we know our silver dollar has this many grams of silver in it, silver exchanges at such and such ratio with gold, so here's the ratio at which the coins ought to exchange for one another. And that's how we wound up with a standard that involved the use of both silver coins and gold coins. So the point of this discussion is that the Constitution takes for granted that we're dealing with a metallic money that deals with a pre-existing dollar that was a silver coin, that does not envision the use of paper money, and that, in effect, conforms to precisely what Ron Paul says about it. So if you want to read more about this, obviously there's much more to be said, and I could develop these arguments at greater length, but let me refer you to the page that I've put up, tomwoods.com/dollar. And on that page, you'll learn more about the dollar, you'll learn more about constitutional money, the Founding Fathers and hard money, and what all this means. So check out tomwoods.com/dollar, and make sure and subscribe to the channel here, youtube.com/TomWoodsTV, so you can be sure and get all my videos. And once I'm finished with this project, I'm going to try to make videos on a regular basis, like super duper regular basis. So please bear with me till then. Thanks for listening.